Hello and welcome to Baku TV International with me, Miranda Shunker. Welcome to our ongoing coverage of COP29, the UN climate conference taking place right here in Baku. Well, our COP29 Digest is a daily roundup of all the big headlines from the climate conference and the key meetings between Azerbaijan and some of the 200 or so nations in attendance, plus of course the progress on agreements and initiatives being made day to day. So let's look at what happened on day 3. Well, as the host country of COP29, Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev expressed his support for developing nations and smaller countries who've been beating the drum for more financial support in Baku.
Our relationship with small island developing states elevated to a new high level. The votes of seats must be heard on the global stage. I call on developed countries, especially with the colonial past, to provide tangible financial and technical support to small island states so that they can protect their countries from climate change complications. Climate change affects every country, including Azerbaijan. We see that year after year, Caspian Sea becomes more and more shallow. We see that there are less waters in our rivers, less snow in our mountains, and floods and heavy rains, which we have never experienced in the past, today unfortunately is a reality. So every country is affected, but for seeds it's existential threat.
Well, taking to the stage at COP29, Iran stressed that Tehran is a supporter of fair and non-discriminatory access to climate financing.
Iran has called on the international community to ensure fair and non-discriminatory access to climate finance. Iranian Vice President Shina Ansari said this at the COP29 Leaders Summit in Baku. She also expressed gratitude to the government and people of Azerbaijan for organizing the 29th session of the conference. Shina Ansari emphasized that Iran is taking significant steps to combat climate change, including the development of a comprehensive strategy and a national action plan. She noted that key projects include switching power plants to alternative fuel sources, reducing emissions in the oil and gas sector, and expanding the use of renewable energy sources such as solar and wind power.
Meanwhile, the Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez says experts agree that the recent flooding in his country would have been less intense without the impacts of climate change. The world is giving increasingly loud signals, he said at the conference, adding that many governments are hesitating and slowing down when they should be picking up the pace. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres also spoke about the unfair burden on island nations.
You have every right to be angry, and I am too. You are on the sharp end of a colossal injustice, an injustice that sees the very future of your islands threatened by rising seas, your people pounded by record hurricanes, your economies torn apart, and development gains left in tatters. This is an injustice perpetrated by the few. The G20 accounts for around 80% of global emissions, and it is an injustice that must end. Your nations, the small island developing states, are demonstrating what climate ambition looks like. You are the first responders, and the world must follow you, and it must support you.
And finally, adding some superstar power from the world of football to COP29 is Ronaldinho, the former Brazilian midfielder who's arrived in Azerbaijan and been meeting players from some of the country's youth teams on his visit to Baku. He's thought to be attending COP29 today to take part in many of the discussions underway. Well, that is the latest from day 3 of COP29. Do stay up to date with all our top stories, and of course we will have ongoing coverage of the conference right here in Baku. You'll find everything you need on baku.tv, and of course you can follow us on social media on X and on Facebook at Baku TV International. Thank you very much for watching.